So the Mueller report is finally finished and submitted to the Department of Justice, and I say it should be published to the public. Considering that this taxpayer-funded fishing expedition yielded zero results, even for the Dems who wanted to put the president in prison or something, I would like to see what exactly Mueller was working on for the past 2 years, to the tune of apparently about $30 million. Frankly, every taxpayer should have the right to see that, considering that they paid for it. $30 million is a lot of money. But my guess is that, like most government projects, it was probably wasted on absolute nonsense. I mean, if Mueller, considering Mueller, who has put away innocent people in the past, we saw that during the anthrax scare back in the early 2000s. They just wanted to lock up somebody so they could say they solved the crime, and Mueller put an innocent man in prison. We know that Mueller is capable of taking somebody out when he wants to, but the fact that he wasn't able to recommend charges on anybody related to the election signals to me that Trump was even cleaner than I would have expected. Because you have to remember, the job of a prosecutor is not to get justice. Justice is that's a fancy term that people use in politics, but in the legal sphere, their job is to put people in prison. That's what you do as a prosecutor. Your worth as a prosecutor is measured by how many people you put in prison and for how long. So once I'd heard that they put a star prosecutor and former director of the FBI, and all-around bad guy like Bob Mueller on the case, I thought, hey, he's going to be able to get Trump on something. It may not be something that is what they talked about. It might not necessarily be like, oh, Trump on tape telling Putin, yes, sir, I'm going to do exactly what you say. It's not like they would have caught Trump taking orders from Putin and pledging his allegiance to Russia or something nonsense like that. But, even Mueller could not find anything on him. But as of right now, we don't know what really was done in the last 2 years because it's all classified. And frankly, my guess is that it's classified because it's embarrassingly weak and thin. If this report is released, it's probably going to be pretty embarrassing for all of the Trump-Russia conspiracy theorists who, ironically, want it released as of right now because their hypothesis is that, well, even if Mueller couldn't prosecute Trump on anything, he probably had a lot of damning evidence in there, just not enough to press charges, which I'll grant is a possibility, but I think that's quite improbable. Perhaps I'm especially cynical compared to some of these people, but as far as I'm concerned, if the government wants to put you away, they will. So this report is probably classified to protect everyone involved, because this will be quite embarrassing when it comes out and reveals that really that nothing was found. And frankly, the vast majority of classified government documents are classified for that reason, to protect people from being embarrassed, because a lot of government secrets are just things that make the government look bad. And folks in the intelligence community, they acknowledge this and they don't see any problem with it. They think that that's a perfectly reasonable reason for classifying something, is because you don't want to undermine confidence in the U.S. government. But of course, I have no confidence in the U.S. government, so I would be very happy if all of these classified documents of all sorts were to come out and expose these fools in the intel community and in the rest of the bureaucracy and in the elected class in Washington, expose them all as fools. I very much want to undermine their greatly exaggerated credibility amongst the American people. The level of contempt of which members of the government look down on the people who pay their salaries just absolutely disgusts me. The idea that you're going to steal money out of my paycheck every week to pay your damn salary, to do some work that is apparently of some value to me, such a high value that you can't even consider asking me to pay for it voluntarily, yet I am too stupid to have access to what you're actually working on. No, you have to keep your work private, but you're allowed to look through my papers all you want. You're allowed to come into my house and shoot my dog. Frankly, the only way that we're going to take these deep state cretins down a peg would be mass declassifications of all the most embarrassing, terrible intelligence operations and prosecutions and everything that these bureaucrats have done over their career, just to expose the system as it is. That's what I would do if I were president. That would be my main priority, would be mass declassification of embarrassing documents. Because the taxpayers deserve to know where their damn money is going. And even when they end up declassifying things sometimes 60 years later, or never in the case of the Kennedy documents, but a lot of the CIA's terrible operations have been declassified after a while. Look at Operation Northwoods, but when they get declassified 40 years later, without any mainstream media attention, well then, not many people are going to pick up on it. So even something as awful as Northwoods, which was the plan to blow up an airliner and blame it on Cuba so that the U.S. would have a reason to invade Cuba, this can somehow pass by as completely unknown to the vast majority of the population, and then people end up sounding crazy when they say, well, what if the government blew up the Twin Towers, which, by the way, I don't think they did. But it wouldn't be crazy on the day of 9/11 to think that based on things like Northwoods. Because the only reason why Northwoods didn't go through was because I believe Kennedy himself put a stop to it. But everyone in the bureaucracy, all of the deep state people, the CIA and the Department of Defense and everyone else, they were very happy to move forward with blowing up an airliner and blaming it on Cuba. Now, would George W. Bush or Dick Cheney have been nearly as resistant to it as Jack Kennedy was? I don't know. But my point is that that's completely beyond the Overton window for the average person to think like that, because they don't know any of the history behind any of these events. If these things were never classified to begin with, well, then I think that our politics would look a lot different. Anyway, if you gained anything of value from this video and you also dislike deep state thugs and tyranny and all sorts of other terrible government ideas, well, then I would appreciate you clicking the like button and subscribing, because I do upload every day, and I think I have a pretty unique perspective that some people may appreciate. See you here tomorrow.